My name is Rae Glinsman. I'm 30 years old. I was born on the 16th of February 1981 in Welbeck Clinic in Welbeck Street in West London. I'm going to talk about how I first got politicised. I grew up thinking you got to vote Tory because that's what my parents did. I didn't really know anything about politics, even though I was very aware of class and race divides just by growing up in central London and seeing different experiences of my day-to-day life and of my peers growing up. But when I went to university, I used to kickbox, and in the first term I sprained my ankle. So I was like, what can I do now? I can't kickbox. And I wasn't really into doing the whole bar socialising thing at uni, so I met up with a guy called Sukan, who at the time was part of our university, what are they called, the people who run the student union. And he started introducing me to Marxism and the Marxist-Leninist debate, and I went to loads of meetings that talked all about just the history of the movement and different political subjects and struggles going on all over the world. And in 2002 we linked up with the Socialist Party of Belgium, went over to Belgium, and then we all went to Vietnam, and that was hosted by the Vietnamese government as a kind of cultural exchange. So we toured around schools and factories and cities and saw how working communism was in action. Although it seemed like there were quite a few holes, because there'd be someone in a factory talking, being like, yeah, I run the factory, and you know, it's all equal opportunity here, and anyone who works on the factory floor can be one of the managers, you know, it's all very equal system. And I was like, well, so did you ever work on the factory floor? And he'd be like, no. Well, obviously he didn't work his way up. So there were kind of, you could see how if there was a general, or if there was like someone who ran a town, that they like people had a lot of fear of them because they held power and in positions of power. So it seemed like any kind of country where people in power kind of rule and they keep the benefits for themselves, as opposed to it being a real meritocracy and real equal society. But it was still interesting in Vietnam. We helped build a road out there, so there was about 40 Europeans on the middle of this stretch in the mountains where they had hardly seen white people before. We were like digging with pickaxes and trying to lay down a road. And when we finished our work, we'd go to these little coffee shops and drink like strong coffee and talk to the locals about situations, life. It was really cool. Beautiful, beautiful country, Vietnam. And then went back to uni, and a few years later when I graduated, we went to Colombia and to Venezuela. And we went to Colombia to find out about how the military and the CIA and American paramilitaries and security forces go in and basically they set up a lot of the freedom fighters out there and label them as guerrillas as a reason to murder them. So they can then control the drugs game out in Colombia. So we spent 5 days hearing testimonies from literally young people like ourselves who lived in villages and they'd never done anything wrong, and the paramilitaries would come through, kill their families, rape their women, take their land because they were in either resource-rich areas or along trade routes for the cocaine, and they would like torture these people. Some people would lie there under a pile of bodies and pretend to be dead and then escape a few days later, and then they'd be hunted afterwards if they ever kind of popped up again. But we heard these testimonies from normal people. They weren't hardline radicals, they were like kids in their late teens, early 20s. It was really deep hearing that. And then university students, we went and met them and found out about the political struggles in Colombia. It's such a divided society, and the president there is terrible. Uribe at the time, I don't think he's still in power, but he's like best friends with George Bush, and they're just on that whole taking the resources kind of power trip. And after Colombia we went to Venezuela to meet Chavez and do the international students international students kind of conference, where there were student delegations from all over the world, from Jamaica, from Indonesia, from France, from England. We were part of the English delegation. We all stayed on a military base, like thousands of us, and every day we went to conferences all about the left-wing movement and socialism. And that was really inspiring to know we were all part of like a wider cause of people who understood that there were freedom struggles all over the world, and we needed to kind of unite and have discourse and dialogue in order to progress the movement.